Hello, welcome back to the Talent Table with Elena and Christy. Today in episode 9, we are going to talk about tech hiring, more specifically how to be competitive in the tech space. We invited veteran recruiter Srini Boominathan, veteran tech recruiter, to come to the table and give us some tips. Thanks for joining us, Srini. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me today. Happy to be here, Elena and Christy.
Wonderful. Hi, Christy.
Hi there.
Okay. So we're going to jump right into it, Srini. Tech hiring is a very hot topic right now. It's just kind of the way of the world, right? That's where we're headed. In most of our industries, most of our organizations, if they're not there yet, they're trying to innovate in spaces where they can. So if you're getting into the space or you're currently, say, a software developer or in another tech type of role, what are the other hot positions that are out there? What type of new skill sets do you see on the horizon in the tech space?
Well, there's no one straight answer to that question, but I'll try. So a lot of companies, it doesn't matter what size they are, they have been in a lot of modernization efforts for the past few years, if you will, and that is pre-COVID we're talking. And now post-COVID, I can only see all of our interactions with the company. Doesn't matter what type of business we try to conduct with them or interact with them, it's all going to be mostly along the lines of touchless communication, omni-channel, that type of deal. That's what we are heading into. So artificial intelligence, that's going to be one of the hottest skills starting now. We're going to see more and more companies and startups evolve in that space. And so cognitive computing as a whole, I would say, is going to be my number one pick for the next foreseeable future. And then cloud has been hot for a few years now, and post-COVID, I would see a lot of companies move into cloud. So as a software developer, somebody should be mastering at least the top 3 ones, in GCP, Azure, and AWS, but AWS more so than the rest of the 2. In my opinion, because that's what most of the enterprises, small, big, and medium, all of them, they join the AWS platform. So that's one main area to focus, I would say. And then apart from these 2, you have the usual, right? The evergreen Java development and open source platform, if you will. But more specifically, I would focus on JavaScript technologies, because in today's time and age, everything's about user experience. Everybody talk about customer experience, how to enhance that experience. So that comes with working on some cool JavaScript technologies, especially React. That's kind of the hottest one out there right now. So that's another key area to focus. And apart from that, if somebody is more interested in data, then I would say jump into Hadoop. It's been around for a long time now, but it's never late. So they can get into that track. And then you have Python. That's the hottest out of all, I would say, because if somebody wants to get into machine learning, statistical modeling, any of those areas, Python is going to be the base. So that's going to be a key programming language for even starters to pick up. And you have the licensed product version on the Microsoft stack. That's there as well. But somebody to be a self-starter and get their hands and feet wet, this is open source is the way to go, and JavaScript technologies and just any object-oriented programming is going to be great, but this is the most hardest since you asked that question about where we are heading. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's great, Srini. I appreciate that. So it sounds like there's a lot of different skill sets that are really hot right now in the marketplace. Sounds like AWS, so that cloud computing, JavaScript, and then, of course, if you're on the data side, the Python and Hadoop skills will be really important to have. I'm wondering, I know those skills will vary from role to role. What if you are, you might have your bachelor's degree already, you're already in the workplace, but you're wanting to make sure you're agile and being able to move across different roles. Tell me how somebody could get those experiences while they're in the workplace that they could then add to their resume. Are there courses that they could take online, or do you have to go all the way back to school to get those experiences? What would be your suggestion there?
To get exposed to these new technologies?
Yeah.
If number one, I would blame it on the organization where they work. who they work for, as long as they are agile and adapting to new trends in the marketplace to keep up with the competition, that's great. Otherwise, in today's world, we have so many online platforms that is much more easily accessible and readily available for candidates to um, get exposed to. So you have Udemy, of course. YouTube is great for free online tutorials, tons of content out there. People are always putting content that they can tune into, a lot of podcasts, I would say, and certifications, LinkedIn Learning. There's so many platforms. Coursera's out. There's one that you can enroll and start getting exposed to those technologies. And you have boot camps too. I'm not a big fan of boot camp. In my opinion, it's only for folks who already have a foundation degree in computer science, for example, and they've been out of the workforce for some time and they're trying to get back to keep up with the market trends. They can enroll in boot camp to refresh, and if they're rusty in some areas, they can definitely enhance their skills and come back to the workplace, to the workforce after they complete their boot camp training. But I would certainly not recommend boot camp to, for example, somebody who wants to completely shift their field from being a realtor to, hey, I like software development, let me jump into it. Not for them. It's going to take some time for them to really prove and do some personal projects before they can pursue a big career with a large organization, unless they have done something on their own after going to a boot camp. They can't, if somebody goes through a 12 to 16 week program, they are technically, yes, they're exposed to the full stack development of things, but that doesn't really make them a full-blown software developer. They still need to go and get exposed to some small startup firms and work, or even do some internships to really get exposed to how software development lifecycle works, and solve some real life problems before they enhance their resume and then get to apply to some bigger organizations. That's my opinion.
Great, Srini. That's actually great insight, because there are so many opportunities in the tech space, and it's good to hear, like you said, if you're coming from a real estate agent, you're trying to get into IT, you may want to leverage other experiences and more formal education to get into particular roles. Whereas you've been out of the job market, you have some of those skills. Those boot camps are valuable to build on those skills. So that's great insight. So with that being said, say you have the experience, you went to boot camp, you have the experience. I see these roles like software developer, right? There are so many software developer roles. And say I'm applying for the opportunity. How do I know that I'm competitive? I know even some of my own software developer roles, you'll have like 200 applicants, so how do you know that you're the right fit for a particular role? I mean, I'm a software developer, right? So they're looking for someone that knows Java. I mean, what else would make me competitive, or how do I know that I'm a good fit?
Hey, it's a pretty broad term, software development. Anybody who can write code, in my eyes, they're a developer, no question. But what they're going to develop, that's what's going to dictate the opportunity, right? So first of all, I hope the job ad is written well to scream what the company is trying to hire, or what they're trying to see in the ideal candidate. So based on that, if I'm the candidate, I got to do a good self-discovery of myself to see where I stand and what technologies I've been exposed to so far in my career path. I can, so maybe a quick example would suffice for this question. So a lot of companies, even till date, they work on core Java technologies because their business model does not allow them, or they didn't have a necessity to go or explore other opportunities apart from what software they're currently working on. So short term is legacy systems. So a lot of companies still have not adapted to the new ways of doing things. So they're still working on legacy technologies, right? So if somebody's coming from that area, that is still a need for those technologies, but there is a time where they all have to shift to new way of doing things to keep up with the competition, no question. So if somebody's coming with core Java technologies, I see those resumes all the time. They are a Java developer, Java programmer, yes, but are they going to be qualified to apply for a full stack developer role right now? Especially, let's say if the position is a full stack JavaScript developer role, they are so far off that they shouldn't apply to those roles. The foundation of programming is there, yes, but as far as them working on those new technologies, they need to go and do a quick refresher through one of these online training platforms or what have you before they make themselves marketable to apply to those roles. But companies, in my experience I've seen, they don't really compare a resume apple to apple with the job ad to see, are you a fit? Do you have all the buzzwords? Then you're in. Otherwise, you don't get a shot at the interview. Companies logically think, are you qualified enough and do you have your foundation strong to perform this role? That's what they really look for. So it's a yes and no answer. Some of it's going to rely upon the candidate. They got to know where their limitations are, and they have to try to break those boundaries before they apply to a cool job with a big company. And otherwise, they got to do some self-discovery and some training before they get ready to apply to those roles.
Cool. That's good. That's good advice, Srini. So let's think about if I've already applied to that cool role and now I get invited to the interview. Do you have any advice for job seekers as they're preparing for the technical portion of the interview? And then I also would be interested to know, do the behavioral skills matter in that interview process too?
Yes, excellent question. I coach all my candidates all the time that they got to do their research. Just because they have been in the industry with 10, 20 years of experience, they claim themselves as a superstar candidate. I see all the time they flunk the interview badly, and managers come back and say, hey, we thought he's going to hit it out of the park, but apparently not. The reason being is there are so many IDEs and tools available for software developers to help with their everyday journey, right? When they do the development, all they have to come up with is the logic and put in the system for it to work. But when you go to one of these big enterprise interviews, all they look for is, how strong are you in your foundation? So they'll go into the foundation level to see, have you got your basics right? So candidates need to really brush upon their basics, because it's been so long that they forgot about, okay, this is like second nature. I don't know, I have to really write this code to show that I'm strong in development, but that's what they got to really prepare upon. So I would say handwriting, they should know how to write a code on a piece of paper. In this case, maybe a whiteboard, not really, literally a piece of paper. So whiteboard sessions, they should be ready to write a code and show, even if they're not able to compile it, at least show this is how they will write a standard code for whatever language they're comfortable with, to show that they are capable of coding. They don't have to compile it, because if it's the whiteboard session, they don't really get to compile it. But there's going to be they can expect some architecture and design type of interviews where they'll be asked to do a whiteboarding session of the whole architecture. So they got to draw a bunch of boxes and show how all the components interact with each other, and the connecting the dots to a bunch of panel folks. So they should be ready to do that. So algorithm interviews, architecture and design interviews, that's a big one. And with COVID, not everybody are going to be invited to on-site, I'm assuming. So otherwise, I can say pair programming is another popular coding methodology. I've seen interview practices where the candidate will be invited on-site, and he or she will be sitting with another existing employee and doing a programming session live, hand in hand with the developer. That's a pair programming setup. That's another interview format. But since everybody are doing everything virtual, I would say whiteboard is the best option for now. And so candidates should be prepared to talk about their foundations. They got to get their data structures right, algorithms right. And then to answer your second part of the question about behavioral, absolutely. Company always wants to see if this candidate, he or she, are they going to be a good cultural fit? And are they going to support the company's mission? So the value proposition, right? So it's the candidate demonstrating those traits they definitely look for. So researching the company is going to help them quite a bit, so to speak along those lines, or at least think along those lines. So they need to definitely be prepared to field any behavioral type of questions. And I would say the big ones, my favorite ones, are communication, adaptability, critical thinking, and then maybe even leadership. So those are some traits they need to be comfortable with answering those questions.
Yeah, that's great insight, Srini. I like the fact that not only do you need to have those technical skills, you also need to be aware of how you align with the organization. And also something I would add is hiring managers are looking for people they can eventually promote, right? Who are those people that have those types of behavioral skills that align with not this particular role, but even the different roles down the line. So thank you for that. So you said a lot about having that foundation, those foundations in a tech space. And you also said a lot about kind of the new upcoming technologies. So what if there's a gap there? You're great, you're strong in your foundations, but there's some of those new emerging technologies that are there that you may not be 100% proficient in. So you have those knowledge gaps or those experience gaps, someone that's trying to transition into the tech space. What are some resources or things that a candidate can do or a job seeker can do to still be competitive, even though they have some of those experience and knowledge gaps when applying?
I touched on it a little bit earlier on this topic. Dino, this question's coming up, but yeah, so like I said earlier, you have a lot of online platforms right now. LinkedIn Learning is a big one. Used to be lynda.com. So that's a big one. Udemy, of course, the most popular one, my favorite one, because of the platform, how seamless the whole platform is for you to view your courses and what have you. And then Coursera is a big one. And then YouTube. I would start from YouTube. That's going to be the first place since it's free and there's content out there for you to, a lot of sessions where you can tune in and start your work way into those technologies. And of course, like we discussed earlier, the boot camp is also available for somebody to come back to the workforce. It's pretty pricey, but at least it'll get you a quick shakeup of how the industry trends are aligned right now. So definitely those are the choices. Pluralsight is another one. If you Google, you'll get a bunch of those, but these are the most popular ones in my opinion that somebody can leverage. But I forgot to give a tip as far as interview preparation goes to your previous question. So after they master all of these, there are some platforms that I recommend to my candidates that they can use, like interviewing.io, that's a good one. And then HackerRank, I've seen them in one of the fairs. I ran into them and they had a booth. So HackerRank is one. And then Pramp is another one. That's a free self-assessment platform, pramp.com. So once you go and sign up there, you can take software engineering mock interviews. So that'll tell you that's a good way to guesstimate how far are you and what's your weak points and areas of improvement and how you're scoring in those areas. So those are some sites to definitely look into for candidates.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Srini. I appreciate that answer and kind of filling in some of that interview prep as well. Well, I think that kind of wraps up our session today. I want to thank everyone for stopping by the Talent Table this week. And if you want to chime in on the conversation, please just feel free to drop a comment below. Be sure to like and share this video. Next week, we will be back with our intern conversation, so you won't want to miss out on that one. Thanks again, Srini, for being here and giving your time to the Talent Table. We'll see everybody next week.
Bye, Srini.
Thanks for having me, guys. My pleasure. Have a good day, guys.